Hello everyone, and welcome to today's live stream, where I will be going over the Blender 4.5 beta, which is now out. For those of you who don't know, the Blender 4.5 beta means that there will be no new features added to Blender 4.5 at this time, but only bug fixes for stability, which is very cool. Blender 4.5 is an LTS release, a long-term support release, which is very cool, and there's a lot to go over, so let's begin. Actually, let's just begin in a minute or two for people to join into the stream. 30 seconds is a little bit short for that. But yes, as we can see here, this is my little flying pinecone project, which turned out to... it worked out pretty well for a 2-hour project. The nice lights, turns out the gobo worked out very well, just put that there and it makes everything look nice and fancy. And then for the floor here, I figured out, oh, let's just make it look like a white sandy beach. Oh, and I believe, oh, it just crashed. Every time I try to showcase a new version of Blender, a bug shows up that has never been shown before. So I'm going to assume that that was a fluke that will never happen again in the history of Blender. And I'm going to try to reopen. You know what? Okay. I think it's opening now. Is it good? Okay. That was a hard crash. That didn't even freeze. Okay, but now we're back. So, I guess since it's on stream, we know why that happened, or what happened before. I'll need to take a look at that, and then make a bug report. But yes, that's another thing. With the beta, go make all the bug reports you can. If you find a bug, let the developers know, and they'll fix it, especially for an LTS release. That is very important. So that one, I'll need to see what was up with that. But yes, let's go over to the browser, where we'll go and take a look at the changelog. There we go. Okay, let's make sure OBS is actually showing that. Yes. So let's start off with animation and rigging, the first one on the list. Oh, actually, wait, let's see what's up with... Let's see, is there anything new in here, geometry node-wise? Okay. Okay. So there is a change for 5.0 already. But yes, let's start with animation and rigging. I won't go over all this, I'm mainly going to focus on geometry nodes, but yeah, let's take a look at this. Okay, bone viewport display mode can be overridden per bone. Oh, that is very nice. So we can have bones that are displayed as wired, or... oh, I forget what the other modes are. The stick mode. That's very good. Depreciated constraints, Python rigid body, have been removed. I did not know that those existed. Well, hopefully that'll make some space for new constraints in the future. Okay, the driver's editor has actually, let's try to zoom in a little bit. There we go. Let's see, is that zoomed in enough? Maybe that's a bit better. Okay. So, let's see, the driver's editor now has a separate transform snapping settings from the other animation editors, meaning that snapping can be toggled independently. That's very nice. That was, in the olden days, editor snapping and viewport snapping were linked, which was very annoying, but when they separated that, it was extremely nice. Okay, shape keys. A simple duplicate shape key operator has been added. Very nice, I'm sure people will appreciate that. A new operator, update from objects, updates shape key data with the positions of selected objects but with matching names. I'll need to look into that a bit more. Animation, the selected group operator in pose mode now has 4 more options. Children, immediate parent, parents, immediate children, parents, siblings, which is in line with what edit mode already had. Very good, very good. Let's see, playhead snapping. I saw this one before. It's now possible to snap the playhead, current frame indicator, to elements visible in editors with the timeline. So if we watch the nice little video right here, we can see that it'll snap to frames, and then markers, seconds, and keys. This will be very appreciated because the amount of times I've just tried to lock in on the frame that a key's on, and it's just one off, has been very, very annoying. Let's see, copy global transform. Oh, it now supports keying sets. Okay, so that add-on is quite useful. Okay, user interface. The available option of the insert keyframe menu is now always included, even when no animation data is available. This helps to keep hotkey assignments for the menu items wait, this helps to keep the hotkey assignments for the menu items. Is that a typo? Or am I reading that wrong? That might be a typo. Okay, the operator graph keyframe jump has been deprecated and replaced with key maps and screen keyframe jump. The latter supports all functionality that the former had. Combining that functionality in a single operator makes it easier to set up keyframes, key maps. Let's go over to the Compositor. Now, there's been a lot going on in the Compositor. So, let's read the chat. The physics and everything in the page... the physics and everything in the page you're on is so good. Let's see. I think the entire update is so good. Honestly, I think the trade-off from stability to functionality is worth it. Well, I think 4.5 will be extremely stable, bar that one bug, that one crash we got. I don't know how that happens, but every time there's a new version that I'm going to showcase, there is a major bug or a major crash that happens, but never when I'm just streaming normally. It's so weird, so odd. Yeah, let's see. So, with the Compositor, the vector math nodes all got added, and the float curves and all. People have been wanting this for so long, and it's now shared between the shader editor and Compositor and GeoNodes, which is very nice. And you can copy these nodes from one to the other. Though I have not tried that with the Compositor, so we'll have to check that out. A new image info node was added to provide information like dimensions, resolution, and image translations. We should probably try that out now. A new image coordinates node was added to provide various types of pixel coordinates, including normalized and integer pixel coordinates. So yeah, now you can get the UV of an image and then use vector math and the textures with all of that. Actually, yeah, let's go and try that right now. Let's see. And yeah, we have all the texture nodes, which is very appreciated. The relative to pixel node, which I'm not entirely sure what that does, so we'll save that for another time. So many things have changed in the Compositor, and in 5.0 it's going to be even better. But those parts are still a work in progress. But yeah, most of the nodes have been changed so that options that were not inputs are now inputs, which is very nice, so that they're compatible with node groups, because in the future, Compositor groups may be much more useful and convenient. Maybe like the modifiers. But yes, a lot of stuff has been removed just due to deprecation and all that. But yes, let's go and showcase the... Let's see, the image info node. So let's go and switch to the Blender scene again. Go over to the Compositor, use nodes, and now we can see that the alpha has been removed from both of these, which is very nice, because it's all just in the image, though you can still get it from here. Let's go and turn off those for the time being. Let's get the chat window back up. There we go. Oh, and wrong thing. There we go. Okay, so let's get the image info node. Let's see, and then the image coordinates, just to make sure. Yeah, there we go. Okay, let's go and render one frame so that we have something to work on. Whoa, why is that taking so long? Why did that take 5 seconds? Yikes. I was playing in real time before. Okay, let's take a look at this. So with this, let's take a look at the uniform. We can see that this is just the pixel, actually... Oh, what range does that go to? Does that go to... Let's move this down a bit and zoom out. Does that go to 1 to -1 or 0.5 to -0.5? Well, we can use the vector math node, separate x, y, z, because we can do that now. That's so nice. Let's take a look. Ah, okay, so it goes from 1 to -1. Okay, interesting. Normalized, as you can assume. It's just the standard UV map from 0 to 1, and then the pixel coordinates are values between 0 and, in this case, 1080, which is very nice. With the dimensions, I would assume that this gives the 1080 by 1080 on every single pixel on the screen. So if I were to use a greater than node, we would see that once it goes over 1080, it is now... Oh, wait. Oh, interesting. Huh. Is that supposed to do that? Oh no, that's the dimensions, not the resolution. My bad, everyone. I was looking at the wrong thing. In this case, it should... Wait. Original resolution of the image in pixels before any transformations. That one should be above that. Oh wait, I need to separate XYZ before this. Let's go and do that. That's probably why it was not doing as I... Yeah, there we go, okay. I forgot that I'll just add everything together. Yep. And then with that one, yep, that does the same thing. With, okay, so one's with transformations, one's without. And then the location, in this case it should just be 0 because there have been no transformations done to it. Rotation and the scale. So since it's untransformed, it's just fine. Let's see. What can you do with all that in the compositor? Any examples? Well now, since we have the noise textures and the image coordinates, which in this case I'll use the normalized, which this changed fairly recently. It's now much easier to get like the UV map with all this. Here we go, let's connect that to that and that to that. There we go. Now we can actually have like noise textures and all that in the compositor, which means if you want to go and make like film noise or something like that, or any kind of effect or texture, you can just put it here and it will work. We now just have unlocked procedural textures and procedural animations. So if I do hashtag frame right here and let this play, though let's go and switch this to be options, the GPU compositor. We should see that it is a bit faster though. Yeah, there we go. It doesn't like to update automatically, though if we were to use the viewport compositor, that would probably work quite well. So let's go and use a mix node. In this case, we'll make this a multiply, so that we can multiply the image with that, just so that we can see that to get a nice, mediocre noise effect. Now let's go over to the main tab, over to here, make this always. So now we can see, it might be a little bit difficult to see with YouTube compression, but now we have a little noise texture on there, and it's now doing that for kind of a film effect. So, it will be great. It will be very nice. Okay, let's go back to the changelog now that we've done that. Let's switch that back in OBS. I have so many windows open right now. Okay, yep, so we have all that. So the compositor is now much more useful than it once was. And it's going to get so much more useful in 5.0 if modifiers become a thing then. So that will be very, very cool. But yes, let's go over to core. Now I'll probably skip over this one because, yeah, it's a lot of this stuff. Let's go to cycles, adaptive subdivision, supporting attribute subdivision, and smooth UV subdivision. Oh, okay, and motion blur. That was not supported before? Oh, I did not know that. That is very good to see. Motion blur is a big one. Modifier subdivision levels are now ignored. Very nice. Multi-threading to improve performance. That is huge. That means it could actually use more than one thread. That's really good. Reduce vertex and triangle count when no subdivision is needed. Very nice. Bump mapping. Improved bump correction. The new correction avoids washed out areas near the shadow terminator. New filter width input on the bump node. Now, some people have had some issues with this, but I think you just need to dial in that value. Once we go over this fully, we can go and take a more in-depth look at all that. Custom cameras. In addition to the built-in camera types, perspective, orthographic, and panoramic, it is now possible to implement custom cameras using open shading language. That could be very cool. This can enable this can be enabled independently of OSL shading, but requires hardware support and is therefore limited to CPU and optics devices. Which, that's the one thing that keeps me from going into OSL. It's usually all CPU limited. Okay, and then AMD HipRT is now enabled by default. Very nice. Let's go over to Eevee. Now Eevee, Eevee Next has been a little bit slow for me and a little unstable, but it's been getting better. And in 4.5, it's gotten a lot better. As we can see here, the Shadow Terminator bias was introduced, which leads to less artifacts, which is very, very nice. The reverse Z algorithm has been implemented to reduce depth buffer artifacts caused by long view distances. Very nice. It should be mentioned, I don't think this is being used inside of the viewport yet, so what you see in the viewport versus the render might be different, but the render will look a lot better, which is good. Let's see. Let me read the chat again. Will we be able to tile images? Yes, you should be able to with simple vector math. There's a great tutorial on that bump node's new settings on Christopher 3D's channel. I'll need to take a look at that, yeah. Fixes. Fix shadow acne issues using quantized geometric normal. This can slightly modify the shadows in some files. Light leaking caused by large source lights have been improved. This can make some surfaces darker than they were in the previous version. Performance. Texture loading performance has been improved. Star performance has been improved. I'll need to check out how much that has been actually improved because it feels a lot better now. Navigation and selection. Objects that are not marked selectable will no longer affect the selection and auto depth. This improves working with semi-transparent surfaces. Very nice. GPU-based subdivision. Oh, wait. Oh, that's good. GPU-based subdivision is available using Metal and Vulkan. Some performance figures. Suzanne on 6 subdivision levels. Let's see. Okay, CPU versus GPU. Okay. That's a bit better. Let's see. At least on the MacBook, that's almost a 4 times performance increase. Wow. Okay. Vulkan is here. The popular backend is now on par with OpenGL. That's very, very nice. It's finally on par. Now, new features may arrive in performance improvements, hopefully. Added support for OpenXR, Subdivision, USD, Hydra, and more. Performance has been improved significantly compared to previous releases. It definitely feels like that. Like shader caches and stuff like that have felt a lot better now. Eevee Next now feels rather usable, which I'm looking forward to that greatly. Linux with NVIDIA requires driver version, yep. OpenGL is still the default. Users are encouraged to try Vulkan by enabling it in preferences. If you find any bugs with this, please report them, because there's most likely quite a few bugs in there still. Okay, let's go to geometry nodes, because that's where everything is. Hello to the 37 people in chat, welcome. We're going over the changelog in Blender 4.5. Let's see. New manifold boolean is so nice, super fast. I was able to boolean thousands of objects in geonodes. Yes, I will need to take a look at that. Let's see. So, mesh normals. Some of you may have seen me playing around with this a while back. Mesh custom normals can now be edited with geometry nodes. The existing tangent space normals can be edited along with a new free format, which is just a simple 3D vector that can be much faster. It should be noted that with the free format, if your mesh deforms, it will look wrong. But if you have it with the normal methods, like tangent space, it should be okay. So just keep that in mind. Let's see. So in this video, we can see that the normal is being warped to make it look like these have a smooth gradient between those two. Now in cycles, with these smooth gradients, it won't affect the shadows, so just keep that in mind. But it works quite well in the tests that I've done. The import nodes. Several nodes for importing external data have been adding. This is absolutely massive, and has caused it's been so great. It's been so useful. But we can import PLY, OBJ, CSV, STL, text, and VDB. Now, with the import text node, I remember when they were considering adding that, they were like, oh yeah, we have an import text node. Would people find that useful? And they were like, oh yeah, let's just add it. And then, yeah, so you can just import whatever text you want, and then use it for whatever motion graphic stuff you want. Import CSV, it'll convert a CSV file, comma separated value file into point clouds. It should be noted that strings don't work in this node because string fields aren't a thing in geometry nodes, but all other data works just fine. It'll get the attribute name just fine, but if it's like an attribute that's made up of a ton of names or a ton of strings, that's the one limitation with it. PLY, OBJ, and STL are all as you would expect. Let's see. Files can be dropped directly into geometry nodes, creating the corresponding import node. That is massive for ease of use. It's gonna be great. Yeah. Okay, loading sequences. It's currently best done with the new format string node. So some people in the community have made setups where it would go through like different OBJ files in an animation and then play those to get kind of like, if you wanted like crowds running and something like that, and to get the correct part in the sequence, you would need to use the frame node and or the scene time node, and then string to value. Or wait, did that exist at this current time? But now we can use the format string node, which this node is apparently extremely powerful, and maybe more powerful than we expect. But yes, it is great. Grease pencil. The new set grease pencil depth node controls the depth for the rendering, option that can also be found in the grease pencil object data properties. That is going to be very useful. The new set grease pencil color node writes stroke/fill color and opacity. The new set grease pencil softness node now controls the softness attribute. So I guess these are kind of like the store named attribute node, but specifically for grease pencil for convenience, which is very, very nice. So yeah, that's great. The add menu now has a grease pencil submenu. Very nice. String input for layer names is now searchable with a menu that lists all the available layers. That is cool. Oh, okay. String input for layer names. Okay. I'll need to look into that. Let's see, visual geometry to objects. This, I believe, was implemented for the Godot game that the Blender devs have been working on. But yes, the new visual geometry to objects operator converts procedurally generated instances to objects and collections that are editable as a part of the scene's data. So if we take a look at this nice little video right here, we'll see that we have a ton of instances generated in geometry nodes, but then if you want them to be real objects, you can apply it. So now they're all actual objects. Which, oh yeah, they're instances of the root Suzanne object right there, which is very nice. Okay, more nodes. Now, who could have developed this node? I wonder. But yes, a new camera info node has been added. This can be used for camera calling. So with this node, I helped develop it with help from the Blender devs when it came to the dependency graph, because that was a big issue when it came to that. But this can be used for camera calling, and I guess we can take a look at the blend file for that. Let me open that real quick. Recent, there we go. So let's go and switch over to the Blender tab. There we go, and let's get the chat back up. Let's see, so many windows. Okay, here we go. So in this case, we can see that there are instances that are being called using the camera. So in this case, it is using a camera calling node group, which is up for free on Gumroad, just because the math can be a little bit daunting when getting all this set up. But it uses the camera info node, which gives you all of the data, or most of the data, that the camera has, mainly the projection matrix, so that you can tell what's inside of the camera and what's outside. And, you know, you can get like the quote-unquote UV map for the camera, kind of similarly to the Compositor, but it just takes a little bit of math knowledge. So I recommend, if you're looking to do camera calling, just pick up the node group and, you know, you can just look inside and see, oh, that's what that does. And it crashed again. Huh, I wonder why it crashed. So that's 2 crashes so far. I've not had that before the beta started, so there must be something new with the beta. Okay, well, let's go back to the changelog. Again, the beta is when bugs will be found and squashed, so if you find a bug, please report it. Okay, so that's that, and there's a new instance bounds node, another one that I cooked up with a lot of help from the developers, because apparently fields are very difficult for me to understand. But for that, if you have an instance, it'll just give you the min and max bounds of the root geometry set. So if you have a cube that's 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter, it'll give you that data regardless of the instance's transformations. You could just apply that after with the instance transform node. But that can be very useful just for seeing just... actually, no, let's take an actual look at the PR for that. Let's see, let's make sure. Let's see, I'm just switching over to this so that I can switch tabs easily. Let's go to the pull request. So here we go. Okay, so the instance bounds node. Let's get chat back up and running. There we go. So in the olden days, we would have to do this workaround in order to get the instance bounds. And it was very, very, very inconvenient to set this entire setup up. So now the solution is just one node, again, before and after, because the bounding box node right here would give you the min and max of only geometry, but not for instances. It would turn the instances into their bounding boxes, but wouldn't give you just the data, which would be very useful. So in this case, you just get the min and the max. It'll give you the instance bounds of their root geometry regardless of transformation. So if you have a ton of trees that are different sizes, it'll tell you the actual sizes of those trees, and you can use that for whatever you want. Let's see, and then performance is a lot, significantly better than the old workarounds. But yeah, you can use that for like stacking objects, finding the rotation centers of the bounding boxes, and so on. So it's quite good. But yes, let's go and switch back to, there we go. Back to here. So yes, we can see the camera info node, there's the bitmath node, and then the starts, oh yeah, more string stuff. That is the match string node and the bitmath node. Very, very nice. Okay. The operations from the attribute statistic node are accessible without any geometry input. With 3 new nodes, the field average, the field min and max, and the field variance. These ones are very powerful. Again, attribute statistic, but without needing a geometry input. It works on a field basis, and you can use the group ID for all of that. Very, very nice. Okay, I guess with this one, you can, that's very, very good. That could also be used for like a geometry bounds node. Just put in the mesh island, put in the position, then boom, you get the min and max of those areas. Yeah, that's very good. The format string node supports a syntax compatible with Python and path templates. Now this node apparently is extremely powerful. I don't even know the full extent of it, but you put in some sort of syntax and variables and it can do stuff. Now, yeah, I don't know the full extent of it, but people have been wanting, well, I'll need to see how similar that is to like a equation node, because it seems like it can do some of that. So that's, oh, is there a string to value node, or is it just value to string? I'll need to, yeah, no, oh, that's very cool. I'll need to play around with that later. Node Tool UI. Panels and attribute search are now supported in the node group operator redo panel. This is amazing, because not only do you have the ability to just, you know, have all the panels, but you can now search for attributes. And that's really, really, really good. Let's see, and a lot of miscellaneous stuff. The mesh to curve node has a new face option that converts each face to a cyclic curve, and I believe the mesh to curve node now has a radius option in there, or a scale option for that. I forget if it scales the radius or if it is the radius. They were talking about that for a while. The instance geometries created by the string to curves node are now given names based on their corresponding text character. Interesting. The bounding box node now has an option whether to include the radius of curves and cloud points. That is also included in the instance bounds node. Let's see. Image inputs exposed to the modifier now have buttons to create or open an image instead of just selecting existing images. Very nice with all that. Curve to mesh node now has a scale input. Oh, that was mesh to curve. Right. The curve to mesh node now has a scale input to scale the profile curve. This replaces the implicit use of the radius attribute that was used before. Ah, okay, so that's just exposed now. Okay. Viewer nodes now support shortcuts similar to the Compositor for Compositor viewer nodes. Press Control plus 1 to 9. Oh, that's how you do it. To set a shortcut and 1 through 9 to activate it. Very cool. I'll need to do that. Link drag search now supports adding zones. Muted switch nodes now have better internal links. Menu switch node now supports switching menus now. The left and right handles default field inputs from... Oh, okay, yep, that's cool. Default field inputs from built-in nodes are now propagated to the node group inputs. The vector math node now supports power and sign operations. People have been wanting this for a long time, and it's so nice that I believe a community developer added that in, which is very cool. Performance. Vertex to edge attribute domain interpolation is now roughly 1.7 times faster. Corner to vertex attribute domain interpolation is parallelized, roughly 1.4 times faster. Face to vertex domain interpolation is also parallelized. Yep, that's how you say it. With a playback speedups of around 7 times and 1. Oh wait, what? Oh wow. That 7 times, wow. That's incredible. Face corner normals used when there's a mixture of sharp and smooth geometry, like with auto smooth, and custom normals are calculated over twice as fast. Very nice. Always appreciated. Let's see. Let's read the chat before we move on. Let's see. Camera culling for huge hair simulations for a extra close-up shot is groundbreaking, although still puzzled on how the sim node would be handled. Well, you would just call it after the fact, but the hair simulation, that's a big one. That's gonna take a long time to be that's gonna take a while to be fully realized. I'm hesitant to say 5.0 is when we'll get our first look at a practical but for that. But yes. Okay, rendering. Added a new grease pencil render pass. The pass can be enabled in the view layer properties under passes data grease pencil. Limitations. The grease pencil pass doesn't render the occluded grease pencil geometry. Using an alpha over with the grease pencil pass, one can recreate the final image. There's one exception where this will not result in the same image. If any grease pencil layers use a blending mode that changes the chromaticity of the alpha channel, the resulting image might no longer be identical to the combined pass. That is interesting. Let's see. I'm late what has been talked about already. Basically everything up to where we currently are with grease pencil. Let's see. Added a new option to filter out grease pencil rendering per view layer. The option can be found in the view layer properties under the filter include grease pencil option. Let's see. Added a new super sampling anti-aliasing method for rendering. Very cool. Let's take a look at the results. So SMAA, SSAA, and then SMAA plus SSAA. Yes, I can definitely tell the difference in the pixels. I can see a slight difference. Like around here, it seems to be a little bit smoother, a little bit fuzzier. But yeah. Let's see. Yep, and all that. Oh yeah, that shows it a little bit better. That's cool. Let's see, and then all that, yep. The minimum thickness of clamping points has been removed, meaning that points now have a The minimum thickness clamping of points has been removed, meaning that points can now have a radius greater or equal to 0. Huh. I'll need to look into that. Let's see. So, yep, again, all that. Yep. Modifiers, the built-in modifiers that support layer filtering now support filtering by a layer group. This will select all layers inside the group. Let's see, geometry nodes for grease pencil. The integration of geometry nodes continues to improve. New grease pencil nodes have been added. The add menu now has a grease pencil submenu, and the layer names are searchable. For more details, see the geometry nodes page, which we've already taken a look at. Let's see. Still no Maya-like bend. So much development in the simple deform disaster is still the bend. Well, the modifier is not going to be changed. That one is hard-coded. But with asset node groups, we can make our own. Like, I made my own bend node, and it's quite good. But yes, if you're looking for a May-like bend node, I would recommend just looking at node groups people have made. Though, there has been a big push for parity between geometry nodes and the modifiers. Let's see. Let me check my notes real quick on that. Dang it. Yeah, no, I don't have it in there. But in the future, modifiers may be just node-based. So if you want a simple bend node, it may be in the future. That's all I can say about that. But yes. Let's see. So node tools. The grease pencil object now supports node tools. Some things to note. Node tools in object mode, edit mode, sculpt mode, and draw mode. Yep, they work in all the modes. Wow, even edit mode, I'm surprised. Or sculpt mode, I mean. Well, grease pencil edit mode has advanced editing capabilities like multi-frame editing and more. Node tools can currently only read and write the current frame. Okay. Let's see. So I guess this means no 4.6. No, they are jumping right to 5.0, which, there's something, I kind of wish they changed the naming to be, like, along with the year, because they are jumping around a lot, and it gets a little confusing. But yeah. Let's see, I hope this means that work on lists will be starting. I don't know. Oh, we have 50 people here. Hello. Wow, that's quite a bit. Let's see. Geonodes do preserve curves. I'm not sure what that means. I don't see how they could. Some modifiers utilize the GPU for speed. Yeah, some do. So not all of them can be converted, but some of them... Let's see. It's only the subdivision node and probably multi-res that use the GPU. So I think those two probably can't. Do node tools work on curves? Yes, node tools now work on curves, yep. Node tools cannot do arbitrary changes to the layer tree. For example, okay, yep, that. The selection and set selection nodes work with grease pencil. However, in draw mode, the selection is always true. The active element node has a layer mode that provides the index of the active layer if it exists. Yeah, I need to get back into using node tools. They seem to be a lot better. Yep. Let's see, fill guides. Let's see, the feature was called boundary strokes. Okay, so, interesting. In 4.2 LTS, this feature was called boundary strokes. Now these are referred to as fill guides. Using the fill tool while holding Alt plus left mouse button by default, the user can draw fill guides. These are special strokes used to manually close gaps between other strokes to ensure the fill can work in a bounded area. Additionally, there is an option in the advanced menu under the fill tool options to automatically remove guides after creating a fill called auto remove fill guides. Let's see. Not sure if it was covered, but the trim curve acts different now. Oh, I'll need to take a look at that. That's probably... Oh wow, there's a lot here. Yeah, there's a lot here. I would recommend taking a look at the changelog if you want to go through all this, because I don't want to spend too much time here, because that is a lot. Wow. Does it say anything about the operators? I didn't see anything about that yet, but I'll need to look at it. Sorry, I should clarify, the trim curve works differently when using set curve radius, since you can do that now with the node. Oh, okay, okay. Let's go over to modeling and UV. General, snap to cursor operator now supports rotation. People will appreciate that a lot. Curves, many operators have been implemented for the new curves type. Separate and join, convert attribute, and the split operator. Yes, the new curves type. That is a very interesting curve type. Used it quite a lot over the past year. Let's see, mesh. There is now additional control over vertex parenting in the object properties relations panel. Indices are now exposed in the UI and can be adjusted. Additionally, the use of, optionally, I completely misread that. Optionally, the use of Man, why was that difficult to read? Sorry, I was going between the chat and that. Let's see. Yes, every other software does it by year. Only the free open source projects do it by number, funnily enough. Not only. I kind of wish every product did per year because it's just easier to say. But especially with Blender because the numbers jump around so much nowadays. Like they changed the numbering. If we take a look at this, it was like 2.79, which I believe was like maybe 2016. And then that was like 2018, I believe. So for 3 years, it was still not even, the main number didn't even change. And then it was just going. And then with 2.93, they went to 3.0. And then it was just and then a jump. So it's 0 through 6, and then a jump. And now it's 0 through 5, and then a jump to 5.0. So the naming is a bit funky. I'm assuming there's an internal, like, code-related reason for that. But numbering by date would be fun. Would be very useful. For people who are just joining into Blender, it's like, oh, which one should I use? Oh, I should upgrade to the 2025 version, quarter 4, or something like that. But yes. Okay. Optionally, use the final evaluated indices rather than the original when calculating the parent position. Yes, this will be very useful. I've thought about making a little tutorial about how to use geometry nodes to control a camera or an object's position, because people have needed that quite a bit. You would be surprised. But doing that currently, you have to do it through vertex or triangle parenting. Well, in the future, I'm working on a constraint so that you can just go and sample attributes directly. At the moment, we have to use the triangles, which isn't the worst, but still not the best. A free custom normal storage format has been added. In this mode, normals are stored as a 3D vector attribute on vertices, faces, or face corners. This can be significantly faster than the existing tangent space storage mode. But I should mention again, tangent space, my bad, supports deforming geometry, from my experience. I'll need to test that again, because maybe something's changed with that. And then the big one, a new Boolean solver option has been added to the Boolean geometry node and modifier. The manifold solver is based on the manifold library. It is much more robust than the float solver, which means it works in many cases where the float solver fails due to numeric issues. It is usually as fast and sometimes faster than the float solver. Bigger speedups happen on machines with more processors. It only works when all the arguments are manifold, i.e. each edge is adjacent to exactly 2 faces. As an exception, the case of subtracting a plane from a manifold mesh should work. Default retopology overlay offset value changed from 0.02 to 0.01. Let's see, point clouds. The point cloud type has been fully enabled and the associated experimental option has been removed. Now this is news to me because I've been using point clouds for probably over 2 years now. Over a year now. Because with geometry nodes, points are just used all the time. I believe, like, actually, weren't points still a thing in, like, the 2.9 days? Like, with the old version of geometry nodes that no longer exists anymore? Huh. So yeah, point clouds, we've been using them for a while. But now the basics of edit mode have been implemented for the object, including transform, the selection overlay, and the set attribute operator. So now it's an official data type, which is very nice. Let's see. Image editor. The image editor mask and paint modes now show all selected and active object UVs regardless of mode. So again, if we take a look at this, it just shows the UV map, and if you have multiple objects selected, it'll show all of them overlaid. And you can choose the face opacity, which is very nice. More UV map changes are coming in the near future, so that will be quite cool. Let's see. Let's read the chat again before we move on. I actually prefer not doing it by a year. Now every 1 times increment used to break some compatibility. With years, it is impossible to track that. That is true. That is true. Good point, good point. 5.0 is coming a lot sooner than I thought it would. I don't know if that is concerning or not. I would say it's not concerning. 5.0 just means that they can make some breaking changes while pushing forward with refactors and a ton of new exciting stuff. So 5.0 coming soon, that is a good thing. That is a good thing. And 4.0 was less than a year ago. Or no, 4.0 was a little over a year ago. At this point, I think. Right? I don't know, it was around that time, so it hasn't been that long. Okay, so motion tracking, a lot of stuff to go over here. Speed up of keyframe selection, up to 50%. Yeah, that's good. And then visualize preview range. Lots of stuff to go over here. That'll take us an hour. Let's go to physics, which, oh wow, there's actually stuff here for fluid simulation. Oh wow. Improve liquid simulation performance up to 1.25 to 1.5 times. Very unexpected. Improve user interface layout for volumetric data settings. Fix for viscosity instability. Fix for smoke dissolve affected by time steps. Fix for hollow interior when importing the VDB cache. Very cool. I did not expect that. The physics stuff with Blender seems to be at the end of its life. It's not getting active updates, but it seems like occasionally they do get active updates. Very cool. Now pipeline. There is a lot to go over here, and I don't have the space to go over all that. But I'm still a bit sick at the moment from last stream, so I don't want to talk too much. But USD got many changes. Again, USD is the universal scene description, which someone mentioned. Should 5.0 switch to YUp similar to Unreal Engine 6? I kind of wanted to, just for everything to be standardized, but that's how you make people absolutely hate that version of Blender. So whatever, and it's gonna be even worse for Unreal Engine 6. Like, you could just imagine how bad that'll be. Like, the conversion would be probably atrocious. Like, for Blender, every geometry node thing would have to have converters in every separate and combine XYZ node. Everything would just be a huge pain. So I think it's a good idea to go along with the industry standard, but whenever the conversion happens, people are going to absolutely despise that version, and people will not want to go to that version because of that change. So it would be a sacrificial version of Blender. So yeah, I think for the moment we're okay. Like, if there's a huge push to do it, I think it probably should happen. But for the moment, I think we're all good. We've handled conversion or axis switching for how many years now? And now it just means that Unreal won't have to deal with that. Now, Unreal does have the most atrocious axis method on the planet. It's in a league of its own in that regard. So switching that up makes more sense than Blender doing that. The whole ArcViz and CAD is Z-up. Oh, I thought CAD was Y-up. Oh, interesting. I know that some CAD programs are Z-up, but I thought a majority of them were Y. Let's see. GLTF, new stuff. Let's see, new option to import scenes as collections or scenes. New option to import unused materials and images. Okay, very cool. And then a lot of other stuff. But yeah, it's always cool to see this. Again, USD, if you're using geometry nodes, USD is the recommended way to go because all the attributes are supported. I believe matrix attributes are supported as well nowadays. But I would need to check up on that because I'm not entirely sure. Let's see. These general import output for USD prim reader nodes has been added for okay. But yes, FBX, even though FBX, people, oh, I forgot what it was. FBX seems to have a security risk, which is why people have been using it less and less. It's kind of niche, but it's interesting to see that still getting support. A lot of support, apparently. Wow. Then OBJ, yep, some stuff there. SVG, you can import multiple at once. And then images and movies, new codecs, OpenEXR, color management. Read and write. Oh. Oh, that's cool. So now it can read and write Ace's color space metadata. Oh, very cool. Let's see. Then all that. Nothing for Alembic, which is a little bit unfortunate. Because I forget, was there anything in for Alembics in the old versions? Let's see. Alembic and USD. Increased values have been changed. Okay. So there's a little bit that's been happening. But Alembic is still used in the industry. But with at least geometry nodes, the attributes don't transfer into there, which is a little bit unfortunate. So it is recommended to use USD if you're using geometry nodes. FBX security risk, what's up with that? I don't know it off the top of my head, but I would recommend looking it up. I forget what it is, but there's a slight security risk with FBX, which is why some programs don't support it anymore, and recommend you use GLTF or GLB. Okay, let's go over to rendering and see what's new in there. Render output. Images written from the render output can now store metadata for the pixel density, the aspect ratio, the aspect ratio into account, making this useful for storing the aspect for non-square pixels. Rendering with the alpha channel is now supported with the BMP format. I have never used that. Video rendering to FFV1 codec now supports 10, 12, and 16-bit output. Very cool. Lights, new light controls, exposure, to multiply the light intensity by. This makes it easy to control a large range of intensities with a single slider. Very cool. Temperature, to pick a natural light color using black body emission. The temperature color is multiplied with the existing light color for further control of the color tint. So that's very useful for like sunlights or just natural looking lights. Would that even work with LEDs? I think so. But yes, that would be that's pretty good. I'll need to use that more. Maybe we can try that out after going over everything. Let's see. Normalize, to disable normalization of the light intensity by area. By default, the total power of the light remains the same when the light size and shape changes. By disabling this option, the total power will increase. The total power will increase when making the light bigger. USD and Hydra natively support the same options, and they are now preserved on import and export. That's very good. Again, industry standard stuff. Very good to see. Shading, volume coefficients. A new shader node to control volume coefficients. Internally, it is just a combination of existing volume scatter, volume absorption, and emission shaders, with the input being coefficients instead of colors. It is intended for modeling real-world volumes with measured data, obviating the need to combine multiple shaders and adjust both color and density. Very cool to see. I'm sure many science people will be very excited about that. Let's see, sculpt, paint, texture. Let's read the chat again. Let's see, Maya is Y up. Yep, Substance is 2, isn't it? Yes, Houdini is Y up. And I believe USD is also Y up, yes. Again, industry standard stuff. Let's see. There's a weird hum/wind in the background, really? Oh, that's unfortunate. Let me check OBS. Oh, is that the music you're talking about? Because I do have background audio playing. Here, let me make that a little bit louder so that you can actually hear what's going on. Though if that is my microphone humming, I apologize. Let's see. But yes, this is the Breath of the Wild soundtrack. It's not the music only when you speak. Ah, okay. Interesting. I mean, my refrigerator is going at the moment, but that is extremely silent, so I don't know what that is. But yes. Okay, maybe my OBS noise filtering isn't doing its job. No, it doesn't seem to be appearing. Oh well. I'll look into that later. Okay, so general, mask by color operator is added to the mask menu and works with the redo panel. Property changes while in white paint and vertex paint modes now create undo steps when appropriate. The newly added manifold boolean solver is available in sculpt mode. This can give much better performance and reliability for the trim tools than the existing solvers, though it requires a manifold mesh to sculpt. The asset activate operator used when selecting brushes now supports a toggle mode and has been enabled by default for the mask brush in sculpt mode. Brush assets support duplication into the current blend file. Color painting supports randomization of hue, saturation, and value during the entire stroke or on a per stroke basis. Okay. Pen tablet tilt support. In sculpt mode, a number of brushes have the tilt factor property exposed. This allows brushes to be modified based on the angle of the pen when using a drawing tablet. Very cool, very cool. When using a brush with this property, the inactive cursor displays changes to provide a visual approximation of the tiled stroke. The following brush types support this new parameter: draw sharp, plane, and clay strips. Performance. Sculpt brush performance has been improved when working without Dyn Topo, I forgot how you pronounce that, or the multi-resolution modifier on high vertex count meshes. No tools performance for simpler changes, only when positions, mask, or face sets are changed, has been improved significantly. The clay strips brush type received various optimizations to become 1.22 times faster. And that is it for that. Oh my god, the asset browser is so much nicer in 4.5. I will need to take a look at that. Let's see, I haven't used the asset browser much because there's still some things I need to do before it's like fully fledged for like geometry nodes and all that. But once it happens, I'm going to use it so often. We have 65 people here. Wow, hello everyone. We're going over the changelog for Blender 4.5. We're towards the end of it. And yes, lots of user interface stuff. Now, I'm not going to go over all of that right now because, oh my gosh, that is a lot. But I recommend you take a look at it because we would be here for the next 30 minutes. Let's just skim over this. Okay. So, report messages, errors, warning icons, improve scroll bars and handles, names for various, yep, that, NLA, light theme, wide enums. Let's see, color pick. Oh, wide enum lists. This is really, really good. Because before, enums, when they had like an absurd amount of items in it, would be very difficult to use. Let's see. Okay, dragging regions now works more consistently. Color pickers now scale down to minuscule sizes better. Let's see. Better padding for tree views without scroll bars. Yep. The loading window now uses the theme color. This time, you will not get flashbanged by the untitled Blender thing before the main window shows up, which is very good. Sidebar. Press numpad period to show the active sidebar. Okay. Let's see. Okay, tablet usage. Sorry, everyone. Editor border outline and hit zone can now be increased. Now, I do like this aesthetically, but for pen tablets and stuff like that, I assume this is going to be extremely useful. Region size highlighting. Yep, that is very appreciated. And then tooltips. Yep, all that. Corner zone is increased in size. There we go. Contrast increased for area size feedback. Yep. Tooltips. Tooltips now show disabled messages about the Python path. Oh, my voice is going. Let's see. Improved preset icons, colored and translatable icons represent green, red, green, and blue channels. Yep. 3D viewport. Show data. Yep. Asset browser. Let's take a look at this. Generate preview from object, and remove preview. Operate on all selected assets instead of only the active one. New horizontal list display mode for a compact view of the assets that leaves names readable. That is very nice. Is that the default now? Because I think I may prefer that. Yeah, that's looking quite nice. Let's see, new import settings pop over. It contains the import method option previously located in the header, new toggles for collection, instancing for link, and append. Drag and dropping collections into the 3D view snaps their positions to surfaces and the grid. Improved scaling options of icons and labels in the asset browser. Asset names and thumbnails in the thumbnails display mode are drawn with up to 2 lines. Okay. So is this, wait, which one is old? Okay, so this one is old. Okay, and this one is new. Okay, very, very nice. Very, very nice. File browser, slightly decrease the horizontal paddings for files in file browser. Yep, very cool. Timeline, scroll bar, and all that. Node editors. Oh, also horizontal scrolling is now supported for mice that have that. I saw that. I forget where. But yes, node editor, frame nodes. Now, the frame has gone through a dramatic change where you now add them with F. You just press F and it'll say, oh, add in a frame, and it'll prompt you to change the label, which is very, very nice. And if you press F while transforming nodes, it'll break them out of the node group. Again, very, very nice. Very useful. And now nodes, well, when you move nodes, the frame they will land in is now highlighted, which you can probably see in there, which is very nice. Frames use alternating colors now, so it'll go from dark gray to light gray so that you can actually see nested frames now, which is very nice. And the frame label positions have been improved. Node groups. Panels in node groups now have toggle inputs. Trying to, again, have a little bit of parity between modifiers and node groups, which is very nice. And this applies to, again, the shader editor and compositor when cool stuff arrives, probably in 5.0. Support expanded enums in the node group interface. So if you have a menu switch, you can now expand them so that it's now these kind of toggle buttons, which is very cool. Vector socket can now have percentage and factor subtypes. A little niche, but people will use that. Let's see. Okay, auto hide inputs when their usage depends on a menu input. Okay, now this one is very interesting. Again, parity between modifiers and node groups. If you want to switch between different modes, you can do that, and it'll toggle certain values on or off automatically, just completely removing their inputs, which is quite nice. Built-in nodes, input and output sockets on many nodes have been aligned to use the same row. Again, making nodes much thinner and less noisy. Again, just look at the space savings, so nice. The input nodes are now also much, much thinner because they don't have a redundant value and object output. Yes, adding nodes, support for searching for specific node operations in the add menu. Like if you want to look for vector math scale, you can just type in scale and you will get that. So support for searching for various input sockets directly, which is very good. One can create a new node group, new group input nodes by dragging inputs from the sidebar. This is amazing because you can drag in inputs or an entire panel. So now you no longer need to duplicate your group input and hide and unhide all the panels. Again, this is amazing. Though when you add in a new input, you will still have to do that sometimes. Error handling. Show link errors directly on the link instead of on the node, which is very good. Just a lot of very nice UI features. Invalid zones are visualized better now, as we can see here. Miscellaneous internal links show on muted nodes regardless on whether the outputs are linked. Then vector sockets now have a dimension property that allows for 2D and 4D vectors. Now, it should be mentioned that this doesn't apply to geometry nodes because geometry nodes added in 2D vectors beforehand and it's still a little bit funky. But yeah, I think that was added for the Compositor because those have 2D vectors and all that. Yep. Okay, the width of the Find Node menu automatically adapts to its content. The Viewer node jumps in fewer cases when it's activated. Group names are initialized from the name of the group. Node search, Control F, now takes dynamic node labels into account. See, panels remain intact when creating a new wrapper node group from a single node, which that one's big. That means that when you, again, need to make a node group out of a node group or out of like the principal node, the panels will transfer perfectly and it'll just look regular instead of having a gigantic node with all the inputs without the proper panels. Properties editor. Individual tabs can be hidden via context menu or options popover. So you can just hide some of these options, which is nice. Context path now indicates when a material is on the object data rather than the object. Navigation bar tabs area can no longer be accidentally hidden, which is always good. Spreadsheet editor. Domains that are not present in the current geometry set are now grayed out. Very nice. The column name is shown in a tooltip when hovering over it. Double-clicking on a column edge in the header now makes the column width fit its content. Columns can be reordered manually now, and the column width can be edited now. Again, just being able to do this, which is very, very nice, especially in the past when you would have tons of attributes and one would be all the way at the end. You can now just reorder it. Modified table inputs now persist. I do not know what that... Oh, okay, no. It just means that the layouts stay the same whether you go from one place to another. There's a new option to display internal attributes. Ooh, no, that is very nice. That is very good. Context path has been moved to the left sidebar, as we can see right here. Let's see, status bar. Spacing has been tightened, improved display during text and numerical entry. VSC solo preview operator now shows correctly on the status bar. Info on the right side of the status bar no longer jiggles. Transforming with proportional editing uses less space on the status bar. Page up, page down key map entries now shown as page up and page down rather than just P and P. Icons are now used for trackpad gestures, and hyperkeys are now shown correctly. Preferences, key map editor. Show alert when key map operator not found. Okay, we can... Oh, key map. Use horizontal scroll wheel to pan the 3D viewport. Again, if you have a mouse that supports horizontal scrolling. Numpad period key map entry to show the active side tab without having to scroll. Okay, there we go. Some stuff for Linux and Mac. And then Windows and all that fun stuff. Let's see. Dragging and dropping will now favor file paths over regular text. Okay. The initial white flash during startup is now less jarring, mid-gray. Now, you will no longer be flashbanged by Blender when it opens. Okay, sequencer. Performance. Video auto-rotation is now faster. Various parts related to color space conversions are now faster. User interface. Added snapping support for the 2D cursor in preview. Sorry everyone, my voice is going again. I have been rather sick this week. Mirror operator is added to strip images. Oh, added snap to frame range in the timeline. Snapping is now enabled by default. Strip image pivot point can now be changed without affecting the image translation. Added support for HDR in sequencer preview. Resizing the video sequence editor now shows more channels/frames instead of stretching the existing view. Automatic updates to the frame rate or viewport transform settings when adding strips to a blank timeline are now reported in the status bar. Let's see, I'm just gonna take a quick look at that. Yep, that's quite nice. Let's see, mute/unmute strip operators now work in preview mode. Slip operator was refactored, fixing many long-standing bugs and improving usability, including an added clamp mode, a cumulative input to avoid jumping, and an interactive status bar. Very nice. Animation keyframes also move with strip content when slipping now. If channel is locked, the strip time panel is also locked. Handle selection is now copied to all selected strips, even if they are not connected. For the default simple tweaking mode to improve multi-strip editing capabilities. Oh, that's actually quite nice. Changes and removals. Preview as backdrop option has been removed. Cache settings were simplified, and sequencer disk cache has been removed. over drop effect and blend mode was removed. Okay, change effect input operator was removed, renamed and cleaned up VSE key maps to, okay. Sound offset property was moved to the time panel. Scene strips are now invalidated when rendered scene changes. Okay, and with that, that is everything that has changed in Blender 4.5 LTS. Again, since I do a lot of geometry nodes, I am a big fan of everything that's happened in geometry nodes. The import nodes are a huge thing that I truly did not expect. And then, yeah, that's very cool. The format string node is a big one that I don't fully understand, but apparently it's extremely powerful. But yeah, and then grease pencil, lots of cool stuff there. I do like the softness mode and all of that. Visual geometry to objects, people have been wanting that for a long time. I forget if you can do that from the little arrow in the modifiers. But yes, it is very appreciated. And then again, the camera info node, the instance bounds node, I'm extremely grateful for the devs helping me with those two, because the dependency graph and multi-threading parts were not fun with all that. But yes. These nodes are going to be amazing. All this is incredible. But yes. Let's see. Hey, what's up? Caught another stream. How are you feeling now? I'm still a bit under the weather. I'm still feeling a little bit, just a little bit off, but feeling better. I'll be good in a day or two. Let's see. What are some possible problems or things that can be improved upon you see in the new update? Ooh, well, I mean, the two crashes that we've run into today, which I don't know, those did not exist before. So again, if you're using the Blender 4.5 beta, report every bug you see. With the bug we've run into today, where it just straight up crashes immediately, or just hard crashes. I don't know why that happened. I'll need to look at the crash log for that, if it even went to the crash log. But I don't know why that happened. So again, the beta will be for like a month or two. So every single bug you see, report it, put it in, because Blender 4.5 is an LTS release, which means that it needs to be stable. It needs to be solid. Well, Blender, if you want to get my opinion about some of the releases, Blender 4.1 is still the version of Blender that I use for work projects because, well, Eevee Legacy, and it is just very stable. 4.2, unfortunately, was quite unstable for me. Blender 4.3, words, pronounce them correctly, has been pretty stable. I've been using that for various projects where it's like, oh, I want to use the matrix nodes and all that fun stuff. So that's been my kind of second main. 4.4, I've had a few, it's been good. Just haven't fully upgraded to that yet because most people are probably still using 4.3. And then I probably will be upgrading to Blender 4.5 on release, because again, it's going to be the most stable version. It'll get all the bug fixes and stuff like that. It's going to be great. But yes, it is amazing. 4.5 has many amazing updates. Again, Eevee now being Vulkan based. Apparently there's been a great performance improvement, which I've felt. Eevee Next now actually feels like old Eevee when it comes to shader compilation. Almost, you know. There's still some stuff with all that. And I'm hoping that in the future, Eevee will be as noiseless as Eevee Legacy. But it is a massive improvement. Geometry nodes, massive improvement. Grease pencil getting more improvements. UV map updates are on the way, and the ones that we currently have are great. The pipeline import and output stuff has been incredible as well. Just all around, it's been great. But I think the main part of Blender 4.5 is the Compositor. The Compositor is now actually usable in pipelines, I guess. It now has the vector math nodes. It now has the texture nodes. You can now get the UV map of it if you want to add in, like, I don't know, custom stuff. But now it's just like, oh, the Compositor is actually a proper editor now. It has everything you need. And then all of the weird inputs being made actual inputs is great. again, the compositor is now usable with node groups. But yes, I think that's the main part of Blender 4.5. The compositor got a major overhaul, which is very, very good. Let's see. Do you have a Discord server for Blender? If no, it would be great if you were to create one. We could share renders and help each other. It's okay if you don't want to. Well, I used to have one back like 2 to 3 years ago. Man, I've been doing this for way too long, which it was very fun. That's where I originally did my live streams. I would just go into Discord, announce it, and then do it, which there were quite a few people there. I think maybe maximum like 25 or something like that. But YouTube was just better. Again, we have 52 people here, which is twice the max amount that I ever had on Discord, just because, hey, it's much more convenient for people to just go to YouTube rather than a obscure Discord server. And the live streams are automatically saved, which is nice. So the Discord server is pretty much dead at this point because, you know, I just don't want to manage that. So at the moment, no, but there are great Discord servers out there for Blender people, especially if they need help with certain effects. So I would recommend Arendelle and Curtis Holt's Discord servers for all that. But yes, I've taken a huge step back from like the Discord scene just because it's like, oh, it's much quieter that way. Again, there's been a lot on my plate and I need less on my plate. But yes. Let's see, I might attempt to make a regex node. I don't think they have one, and it's sometimes useful even though it looks like an alien language. You should look up regex, by the way. It is literal magic. I will have to look that up, yeah. I might actually learn and play with Eevee this summer. Yeah, like Eevee has been my main renderer for the past who knows how many years, just because for small projects, which most of my projects are just geometry nodes effect and a little scene, and that's it. And for that, Eevee is all that I need. I don't need fancy refraction, I don't need fancy bounce lighting and stuff like that. So it's been everything that I've needed. Eevee Next, which came in Blender 4.2 LTS, which even the devs have thought that that might have been a mistake. Eevee Next was very, very rough on the release. It was very rough. And it's still fairly noisy. It's not quite at Eevee Legacy levels of image quality, unless you use a ton of samples, which as we saw today, one render took about 5 seconds with 128 samples, which is way too slow for a real-time renderer. That's almost cycles level. But with that, it was probably the motion blur steps that did that, if I'm being honest. But yeah. Wait, we got UV for the compositor now? That's huge. Yes, a compositor is like the main showcase of 4.5 to me. It got a major upgrade. It has all the vector math nodes. You can get the UV map. You can get the image dimensions and all that. And the texture nodes. So now you can't just do procedural stuff in the compositor. And it's great. If you want to make like a film effect, if you want to make like a... I don't know, if you want to make the back rooms with all the filters and all that, you can make it natively inside of Blender, which is nice. Let's see. Yep, and then, yeah, all of that. So the compositor got a major overhaul. Again, all the weird things that you cannot make into actual inputs are now actual inputs. Because, well, there's even more crazy stuff coming for the compositor in the future. But let's save that for when it comes along. Because, yeah. It is going to be amazing. Let's see. Because, I'm not sure how many people have heard about this, but the NPR branch, or the NPR system inside of Blender is going to be coming in the future, after 5.0. But it'll be using a lot of new cool technology. And we're seeing some of the beginnings of that, I think, here. Yeah, lots of amazing, amazing, amazing stuff. But yes. And also, if you are using Eevee, make sure to switch to Vulkan, report any bugs you see, and Vulkan is just significantly faster compared to... Wait, I forget if this means that performance is faster than the old OpenGL version or faster than the old Vulkan versions. I'm going to assume OpenGL, because Eevee Next feels a lot better nowadays. Let's see. Let's see. And I think that's everything. I might go and play around with some of this in Blender 4.5, but the latest beta release I got is crashing. So I think they may be changing some stuff still. Let's see. I'm a bit behind all the Blender updates, so what's the NPR branch? There was a branch of Blender where they were testing different NPR capabilities, so non-photorealistic rendering. So stylized stuff, they were just experimenting with different ways of implementing that. And they've now come to a design, they've now come to an NPR design that they want to implement into Blender. So now that NPR branch will no longer be developed because they'll be implementing it in a different way, and there's a whole like write-up about that, so I would recommend taking a look at that. But that will be after Blender 5.0, so that's a ways in the future. But the Compositor, these upgrades in the Compositor are probably like a precursor to that. And also, I've heard a bit about Compositor modifiers, so keep an eye out for that in the future. Though I will need to verify a bit of that. But yes. Wait, I'm confused about how the new nodes to scale the image apply, unless I'm overthinking it. In the Compositor, let's go back to that. You can transform images using a node, and with this you can now read those transformations. Because it is a little bit weird, and I haven't looked into that all too much. But now there's just the regular image coordinates, and then, like, images work a little bit differently in the Compositor. But now we can read those so that we can, like, compensate for it and all that. But yeah, well, I'll need to play around with that. Let's see. I thought they weren't going to add it into the official branch because parity issues between Eevee cycles and Eevee. Yes. The NPR branch will not be added in its current iteration because of the differences between what would be possible in cycles versus Eevee. So the new version, the new implementation, will probably be the same between cycles and Eevee. And what I've seen is pretty cool, but again, it will be developed after 5.0. Okay, and that's that. So let's go and play around with a little bit of this in the main Blender scene, and let's go and actually open Blender, because last time it crashed. And let's keep an eye out for those crashes. Okay, actually, let's take a look at this. Recently, I was trying to figure out how to make triangle-to-triangle intersections, because I was looking to possibly make a collision node in a sense, where it would be like, oh, you can make triangle-to-triangle collisions and stuff like that. Because collisions are still very annoying in geometry nodes, but I was just playing around with that. So it's like, oh, here we go, and we have the collision points. If you want to take a look at the math, it's inside of here, which I made it. This is a bit more complicated. Let me go back to the simpler one. So yeah, with this one, it's basically, oh, take a triangle, get the matrix, apply it to the other triangle, get the stuff for that, and then see if there's a hit between that. Right now, it's edge to triangle intersections, so it's not the full thing. But yeah, let's take a look at the Compositor. Actually, no, let's go back to the Pinecone scene so that we can actually play around with the Compositor. Let's see. There we go. Let's go over to the Compositor, use nodes. We have that. Always, I should have the viewer disabled by default. Let's see. So we can transform this image, which is interesting because it's doing this. It's transforming the actual image. And then if we get the image info, or image coordinates, and then image info, yeah, there we go. We can now read the transformation. So this will output a value of 88 in theory. Again, let's go and verify that using the math nodes, because now we have vector math, and I'm so happy about that. Oh wait, that's 88 converted into, is that radians? It doesn't output the singular value. That's something that I would change, making it so these singular values. Or wait, oh no, constants aren't supported. Are constants supported yet? I forgot. Let's see, image. Yeah, we need, if I were to change something, and this would go for the shader editor and Compositor, it would be having an image input, because that would be very necessary for node groups, and have been very, very necessary. Like, if I could do that, I would implement that, but that's a much bigger undertaking than you would expect. Let's see. We need the Blender devs to give us options for Eevee methods like Legacy and Next. NPR, the community's been having lots of problems with Eevee Next. Yeah, Eevee Next, again, it's been rough. It seems like they've been mostly focusing on the under the hood stuff, while the stuff that is exposed to everyone else, like, again, the massive amount of noise, that still hasn't been addressed yet. And then, like, transparent shadows have been a little bit iffy, but they've addressed some of those. But yes. Maybe tiled image hasn't been implemented. Let's see. Well, you should be able to tile an image. Or wait, no, you don't have the UV map stuff. Right, because the images don't have a UV map input. Actually, no, there's a, let's see. Oh, what was it? There is an option to get the UV for, let's see, map UV. So you have this, and you can make a, actually, I need to test this. So let's go and get the coordinates of this and apply it to here. Oh, wait. Maybe this will work? Oh, that doesn't output anything. Hello? You should be able to repeat images. But I don't know why. Actually, I need to check what this node actually does because I'm not entirely sure. Doesn't seem to function as I expected. So mapping... Is that broken? Let's let that cook and then see what happens. Oh, that... Wait, let me look this up right now. Map, Blender, map UV node. Let's see, in the manual, the map UV node distorts a texture so that it can be composited into the UV mapped objects in the scene. May be used in combination with the Cryptomat node to only apply the texture to specific objects. I'm looking at this right now. Oh. It doesn't work with the... Huh. Why doesn't that work? Because in theory that should. Because in the example here, they have the... What is it? Or is that an AOV? That might be an AOV. No? There should be a UV option here. Or am I missing that? I don't know why that node is not working with that node. Maybe they need to add a UV socket to images maybe. Now this one should work. Like, I don't know why it isn't. Because the only difference between what I'm showing here, or oh wait, maybe I just had that connected wrong. Nope, that's still broken. Because again, we have our image, and then we have the UV map, so that should be projected there. Because in the example, it seems like it is doing that. Maybe it's bugged. I don't know. Because the only difference between what I have and what they're showing is that their UV map came from here instead of being another pass that they put into there. Maybe it's because it's coming from a different image? But no, that should be fine in theory. Maybe it's because it has to come from the same image thingy. Because again, images here are a bit weird. Yeah. What if we put in, let's go and get the normal, re-render this, and then we can go and actually see. Man, this is like cycles time with all that. Go and put that into there and see if it warps. Okay, yeah, okay. So that's what you need to do. It needs to be a part of the same image pass, because apparently the image coordinates aren't. Though maybe that's a bug. Because I think those should be the same. Because the images are the same, so they should be compatible if I had to guess. But yeah. Let's get the chat back up. Yes, but anyway, again, we got the noise textures, which can use the UV input. Then those are being put into there, and we can see all that works just fine. I don't know, yeah, these should work here. I don't know why they don't. Maybe that's a bug, maybe that's intended. I would need to look into that. Because in my head, I imagine that the input here would work the same as the input there. At least it would with this, because if we plug this into here and then do this, we see that we get that result. If we plug this into the noise texture and then plug this into here, we can see that we get a somewhat similar result. Yeah, maybe that's just a bug with this one. Let's see. Let's try image info and see if that does the same thing. Yeah, no, it seems to just straight up invalidate the render entirely. Unless I'm missing something very obvious. Because that goes through... Oh, it crashed again. It seems like the compositor still crashes. Okay. So that's 3 crashes in one stream, all related to the compositor. Okay, let's go back here, back to compositing, render this. Use nodes. Okay, we're back here. So what was I doing? Right, I was trying to offset that. So let's get the map UV node. Again, set those to 0, 0. Okay, why is it not... Wait a second, why is... Wait, why are you being used? And why aren't you being used at all? Wait. Why is the Z input being used here? Wait. Let me try something, and if this works, let's see. Image... oh, what was it? Info... No, it was... Man, I forgot the name of the node already. So this should be... Inputs... Actually, where is the image info node? That's just input, okay. Image coordinates, right. We'll take that out. Separate that, get the normalized version. So... Nah, okay. That has to be a bug, right? Why would Z control the alpha? Am I wrong? Or is this the exposure? Why? I am greatly confused. Is that supposed to happen? Why? That has to be a bug. That has to be a bug. I also want to try something else, because right now it's not crashing. Huh. I need to take a screenshot of this. Okay. So yes, if you see any bugs like this, please report them. Again, we have 2 months, or 1, I forget how long the beta is. We have a month or 2 to get all these bugs in. And again, the biggest one I want to get is why the heck things keep crashing. My theory with this current crash is that when the compositor is full screened and then using control space, for some reason that's what causes a crash. But also, yeah, this has to be a bug. How do you report stuff? Well, you go into, oh, what was it? You go into help and then you click report a bug. That will open up a window where you can go and fill out a form. It has like all the information about your system so that they can pinpoint if it's like a your machine issue or just in general. And then all of that. And then, yes, add in a blend file with the bug or crash that happens in its simplest form. And then the devs like read the information about how to properly report a bug and all that fun stuff. So I'm really trying to figure out why the heck this would happen. Do I need to look inside the code to see why the heck that's occurring? Because that should not happen in any dimension. And that, I think that's a bug that needs to be reported now, because that is a big one. Because connecting that to that, again, this is a 2D vector, and this should support a 2D vector. Now that 2D vectors are a thing, because actually, yeah, let's go and make a node group. The music has changed, which means that we're past an hour and a half. Wow. Okay, so I should really wrap up the stream. But yeah, a big stream today with a lot of people. Let's go and use a vector math node and make a group. Let's go and make a group. So now let's go and take a look at the sub panel parts right here. So now we can choose the amount of dimensions that a vector has, because a vector can be, oh wait, did that, oh no, that was only the output. So again, here we can support 2 dimensional vectors all the way up to 4. Again, this is different than geometry nodes, where we have 3 and 2D vector support, but we can't really pick it in the panel. Or can we do that? I think over the hood, maybe 2 and 3D vectors are supported, but not 4D. But yeah. Yeah, so with this node should only support 2 vectors and probably should only show that. And the third one is probably, like, this should, in no circumstance, should this do this based on the UV. So that is definitely a bug and will need to be reported. Along with the crash, which I still don't know why that happened. Okay. And also, we saw this part before, you can set it to be a percentage or a factor and all that fun stuff. Yeah, and then the min and the max, let's set this to be between 0 and 1. So again, you can set that with vectors, which is very funny. Again, coming from a geometry node standpoint, I would not expect that to be... I wouldn't expect people to use that all too much. But maybe in the compositor that would be a lot more useful, which is probably why it was added. Third one is depth, since the node works for 3D. UVs, unless I'm severely misunderstanding something. Unless I am severely misunderstanding something. UVs should not, they should only be 2 dimensions. The third dimension should definitely not affect the exposure or the gamma of an image, because I really don't think that should be happening. Unless there's some secret functionality in the compositor that I'm not aware of, this third input should be completely ignored. Because yeah, again, with the UV, this modifies where the thing is in space. So if we use an add node, it will crash. Okay, so that's crash number 4 when using the compositor. Okay, let's run this one more time, but not go into full screen because I have a feeling that's one of the parts of the crash. So again, F12, let's get this up and running. Render, okay. Wait, is Vulkan enabled at the moment? It should be. Oh, whoops. Yeah, no, backend is Vulkan. Okay, let's hide U and then get the UV node, map UV. Again, that resets it to 0. Again, if we set that to be that, I don't get it. Okay, now let's go and get the coordinates. And now we plug that into there, but let's also use a vector math add node. So right here, that should not be the case. We should only be able to move the image using vector math because that's what's expected. In GPU, we should only be here. Let's go and toggle window full screen again. Move this side to side. That should be the case. This will just move the image. And apparently on the image, the borders are transparent. And we should be able to do a lot of effects, like, let's say, fracture for tiling, which is why we're here in the first place. So let's go and scale, and we're going to add one last. Because, again, that's not supposed to be happening at all. So here, if you want to tile an image, that's how you do it. But this has to be a bug. I don't know why it wouldn't be. So again, for that one person in chat who was wondering how to tile images, this is how you do it even with the bug. And I'll be eating my words if it's not a bug, but I really cannot think of a reason why it would do that. Actually, I'm going to look at the code right now. So please bear with me while I go and check that out. Let's see, this should be map UV node. Let's see, and that should be in the compositor. Whoop. Nope, it's trying to scan for stuff. UV. Please bear with me while I go and get that. Map UV. Where is that? Node composite map UV. Okay. So I'm looking at the code right now. And let's see. The input is a vector, and it's UV. Default value is 1, 0, 0. Yep. Min, max, 0. Okay, filter type. Please bear with me while... Actually... I could try showing you what I'm seeing. With OBS, let's go to here and switch this to be Visual Studio. Where are you? Wait, is that not showing up? Here we go. Okay, so here we are in the actual code of that one node. This is in a branch that I am working on. Let's get chat back up and running. Dang it. So many windows. Okay. Let's see. So let's take a look at the code. So the original version of this node was made in 2006. I was 4 years old when that came out. I was just a baby. But we can see right here, it's an image which has, again, 4 vectors, or 4 floats. Again, RGBA, and then the UV in this case has 3. Now, this probably should be updated to have 2 instead of 3, as I would imagine, and that might be a part where the bug is coming into play. So we can see here, filter type, I don't play around with shader or compositor nodes, so I don't know what most of this stuff does. Yeah, that looks like something. Okay, and then that UV is assumed to contain an alpha channel as its third. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. The UV input is assumed to contain an alpha channel as its third channel, since the UV coordinates might be defined by only a subset area of the UV texture as mentioned. In that case, the alpha is typically opaque at the subset area and transparent everywhere else, and alpha premultiplication is then performed. This format of having an alpha channel in the UV coordinates is in the format used by UV passes in render engines, hence the mentioned logic. Ah. I would not have expected that in a million years. Because it's for post-process texturing. Ah, okay. So that... I would not expect that. I would never expect for a UV channel to have alpha. Maybe that's just because my brain is all geometry nodes and geometry based. Maybe this is a well-known compositing thing, but I would not expect that. Let's see. The alpha is typically opaque at the subset area and transparent everywhere else. The alpha pre-multiplication is then performed. This format of having an alpha channel in UV coordinates is the format used by UV passes in render engines. Ah. And that value is not clamped either. Okay, so it's not a bug. It is not a bug. Huh. Does that show as a tooltip? I'm gonna check real quick. Nope, it just says UV. Okay, that is very unexpected behavior. So, okay, let's go back to Blender right now. So, that should probably be updated. Because if you're looking to put a UV into a UV, nothing happens. Maybe some functionality should be added where if the input vector is 2 dimensions. Yeah, no, Yeah. Yeah, no, that's rough. I guess the only way I can think about it is make the alpha an explicit input here rather than it just being, oh, UV and then that. Right? Because, again, people are going to try using it just like this and it will not work, straight up. That is unfortunate. Well, at least now someone's tried it. Yeah, that's... It's on purpose, but maybe that... When was that functionality added? Because maybe that's just a legacy thing from like 20 years ago. I feel like that's a legacy thing from 20 years ago. Because... How... Huh. That is very, very odd. A Gaussian blur node for shader editor would be viable? No. You cannot blur fragment shaders. Except with dithering. Well, okay, you can blur fragment shaders, but it wouldn't react in the way that you wanted to. You want to blur the textures, not the shader. And yeah, that's it's a whole that's a whole can of worms, but the devs have talked about this before. In the shader editor, there probably won't be a blur node specifically, just because of the way that those render things work. Because in the Compositor, there can be a proper blur node because it's just blurring pixels that are, it's like blurring a texture rather than blurring a fragment shader and all that fun stuff. Yeah, I'll need to make a post about this. Because, yeah, that is... Well, it's intended, that's not great. In just UI-wise, that's not great. And people will be using this workflow, since this exists, since we have UV maps now, people will try to be using this all the time. So I really dislike the idea of, oh, you'll have to, every time you want to do that, you'll have to add 1 in order for it to show up. I think ideally it would just be, oh, you have an alpha. This will be 2 dimensions because, again, 2-dimensional vectors are supported now. And then you would have an alpha channel on the bottom so that if... I don't know. Dang. Yeah, no, do game engines use 3D UV maps nowadays? Or I mean 3D, at least on the Compositor, on the like scene assembly side. Because again, regular UV maps in the geometry space are all 2D. But I haven't heard of 3D. Maybe that's just because I don't do render engine / compositing stuff. But yeah, that's going to confuse a lot of people, because it confused me. Maybe an option to switch between 2D and 3D UV maps would be the way to go. What the node should do is, if it's a 2D vector, assume the alpha is 1 and keep the old behavior. Well, there's a reason why that wouldn't work. Because if you have an add node, like if you have this, it would switch it to be a 3D vector and then put it out. So that wouldn't work, unfortunately. It would work if you just like connected here to there, but any editing you do in the middle, like if we're doing math to the UV map here, it is converting it to be 3D, RGB. So that part, like maybe an option just to switch between 2D and 3D vectors would be the way. Just have another socket here or a boolean to switch between 2 and 3D. Because that would be, yeah. Yeah, that's a big, I wish I knew about that earlier. Because maybe in the beta it's too late to add that in. Because while it is expected behavior, it's very unfriendly, especially when the tooltip is just UV. Like, if I were to make a patch, which I'm genuinely considering right now, this tooltip would be UV, third channel is alpha. Yeah, no, at minimum, I'm actually considering doing that right now. Because that would be it would just be 1 line of code. Like, literally, I can't do it specifically right now, but I wouldn't be able to make a PR for this right now. But this would just be UV, Z is alpha. Or third channel. Third channel is alpha. I forget, do they caps this or is it all lowercase? So if I were to do that, save and then reload the thing, it would just, now that would show up. So that's what I would do, though I think it would be better just to, I don't know, have an option, have a boolean for UV alpha, I guess. Yeah, I think that's what I would do. Just have a new boolean input, because I think booleans are supported now in the Compositor. Just be a bool, and then this one, bool. Then this one would be use UV alpha. And then that would be on by default. Default value, that would just be, that default value would be false. Or true. To preserve the previous behavior. So it would be like that. Just gonna save that for future reference. And then if that were enabled, again, this probably won't work because I don't know how the compositor nodes work. But down here, let's see, image, and then that. Get single value, okay. And then that would just disable this entirely. So if that were true, then that would completely disable this. Again, it's the beta, so that probably won't be allowed. But with 2D vectors and all that, people will expect something very different. Oh, dang. I wish I knew about this. If I could time travel back a week, I would do this. Dang. Well, if there is like a community developer or a developer in the chat now, would that be possible? Because it deals with the new functionality. At the very, at the very least, changing the tooltip would, changing the tooltip would probably be allowed. And then wait. Okay, so they copied the comment here as well. So both those would have to be invalidated, or I could just make it so that Z is always 1 for the UV map. I'm thinking if I were to... yeah. They do that. Okay, they comment it every time. Okay, yeah, that's... Okay, that's to be expected. That's very, very funny. Yeah. Just reading all this. Okay. So me personally, I would have a checkbox for that. Just so that people know about it, and then the tooltip would be third channel's alpha, yeah. UV, third channel. Actually, let's copy it right from the comment here. Let's see. Alpha channel is third channel. Okay. As third channel. Or, no, we can rephrase that to be third channel is assumed to be alpha. That how... Yeah, that seems to be all right. So at the very least, having the tooltip is good, but maybe having a checkbox would be preferable. Because yeah, that is very unexpected behavior coming from a regular... Again, I'm not a compositor, but yeah. Okay, I think that's enough for going over that. That's a little obsessive with that. But anyway, what else? Again, tons of fun stuff coming in Blender 4.5, but also, as we've seen today, few crashes. So report any crashes you see. Let's go and see if... Let's see. It's at an... Oh, nope, that crashed. Okay, there are many crashes. I'm assuming there's a part of the UI that is crashing, that is causing this crash. But, yeah, so that's 5 crashes every single time. Every single time. So, new input. Okay, that didn't crash. Good. Progress. So here, we can set the amount of dimensions, and that will affect... Okay. That will affect it there, but in geometry nodes, only 3 dimensions are supported. And though R2... I'm assuming 2 is supported, because we do have, again, stored named attributes. We have 2D vectors, but even here, they're shown as being having a 3rd input. So that should probably be updated to align with that. But again, it is a little bit quirky. Because in other places in Blender, it's like, oh, you have a float, and it's, oh, how many parts of that float do you want? How many channels? If I remember correctly, that is in the custom properties. So if we have new, this would be, oh, nope, new. If we go over here, we can select float or a float array, which in this case makes it so that, oh, that's a vector because it's just multiple floats, and we can make this an arbitrary amount, which is very fun. But it seems like we're getting some of that functionality here, except it's, you know, a little bit limited. Because again, vectors versus, yeah. Okay. UV and the tooltip should be 2 separate things. Oh, did I accidentally put that where the name of it is? Ah, yes. Yes, I did. Okay, we're gonna go back to here really quickly. Yeah, no, that's the name, not... Yeah, sorry. Yeah, the tooltip is another part. Sorry, everyone. I'm a little bit tired at the moment because I've been going for so long. But yeah, I would put in a tooltip for that. Right now, there just isn't any. I forgot what function adds a tooltip. But anyway, let's go back to here. Again, Blender 4.5, apparently it has its issues at the moment where it crashes quite often when using the compositor or just navigating the UI, but I'm assuming that's a little bug because they're changing some stuff. So please report any bugs you find. I need to check the crash log to see why that happened. Okay. But yes. But yeah, many cool things coming in Blender 4.5. It's an LTS release, so all the bugs will be squashed now or later, but preferably now. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Well, let's read the chat again. Let's see. Let's see. Honestly, I don't think the map UV should be used for that. I tried your tile set and noticed some strange artifacts along with the edges of the dimensions, even with a rotate node at the start of the nodes. Well, no, vector math and fraction is how you would tile it normally. You might just need to scale it because apparently the image starts and ends seem to be alpha'd, because apparently that's how it works. But it's a little bit weird, but you would just need to use a map range to make sure that the image is clipped a little bit inside so that it doesn't have any weird alpha stuff at the borders. But yeah, UV maps are quite useful. But yes, thank you all for watching. Again, Blender 4.5 coming out soon. Just make sure you make bug reports. Alright, have a good